What if I told you that the most overlooked aspect of Jesus of Nazareth is how physically extraordinary he was? We talk about his miracles, his teachings, his resurrection, but we almost never talk about the raw physical demands his life placed on his body. When you carefully examine the historical and scriptural record, what emerges is the picture of a man of exceptional endurance, strength, and toughness. Today, we're breaking it all down. Welcome back. Today's video is about the physical body of Jesus, his life as a laborer, the brutal demands of his ministry, and the documented physical feats most people never think about. This isn't a theological debate. This is history, physiology, and scripture, brought together to answer one question: how physically strong was Jesus? Let's get into it. The carpenter, who wasn't just cutting wood. In Mark chapter 6, verse 3, Jesus is called a tekton, a Greek word often translated as carpenter, but more accurately meaning a craftsman who worked with hard materials like wood, stone, and timber. In first-century Galilee, this wasn't a desk job. A tekton hauled raw timber, split and shaped stone, lifted heavy beams, and worked with hand tools for hours, every single day. Modern estimates suggest daily loads of 60 to 100 pounds or more for this kind of labor. Jesus likely worked this trade from his teenage years until approximately age 30. That's nearly 2 decades of hard physical labor. Think about what that does to a body. Dense muscle, thick hands, hardened joints, a deep cardiovascular base, and most importantly, a high pain tolerance developed through years of physical work. He did not begin his ministry as a soft man. He began it as a hardened laborer. He walked constantly for years. This is easy to overlook until you really think about it. Jesus conducted most of his ministry entirely on foot. The gospel accounts describe journeys across Galilee, Judea, Samaria, Jerusalem, the wilderness, the Jordan Valley, and many points in between. Scholars estimate that during his 3-year ministry, Jesus walked somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 miles total. For reference, that's like walking from New York City to Los Angeles and back. And this wasn't flat pavement. The terrain of Israel is rocky, mountainous, and harsh. The roads were dirt paths. The climate ranged from brutal desert heat to cold mountain highlands. And he walked these distances in sandals, carrying minimal supplies, often without guaranteed food or water. This level of sustained long-distance walking requires, and builds, extraordinary stamina. 40 days without food. Before his public ministry began, Jesus entered the Judean wilderness and fasted for 40 days. The Judean wilderness was not peaceful. It was a harsh, rocky desert, blazing heat during the day, freezing cold at night, minimal water, little shade, dangerous terrain. Medically speaking, fasting for this long pushes the human body to its absolute limits. The body enters survival mode. Muscle breakdown begins. Dehydration becomes dangerous. Energy reserves collapse. And yet, after 40 days in those conditions, Jesus emerged and immediately began an active ministry of traveling, teaching, and healing. This wasn't a weekend cleanse. This was a survival-level physical ordeal, driving out the money changers. In the Gospel of John, Jesus enters the temple during Passover, fashions a whip of cords, and drives out the money changers and merchants. Now think about the logistics of this scene. The temple courts were crowded with hundreds, possibly thousands, of merchants, pilgrims, livestock, and money changers. Heavy coin tables, cattle, sheep, chaos everywhere, and yet Jesus, acting alone, created enough force and authority that the entire operation fled. Nobody tackled him. Nobody stopped him. No guards immediately intervened. That requires more than spiritual authority. It requires physical presence, confidence, intensity, strength, overturning heavy tables, moving livestock, wielding a whip. This is not the picture of a physically weak man. This is a strong, decisive, physically capable man operating with overwhelming force and conviction. The sweat of blood. In Luke chapter 22, Jesus is described as sweating drops that fell like blood during prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. Medical experts have noted that this resembles a rare condition called hematidrosis, a condition where extreme stress causes tiny blood vessels near the sweat glands to rupture, mixing blood with sweat. Think about what that means. The stress he experienced was so overwhelming that it physically manifested through his body. And yet, after this prayer, he stood up, walked forward, and willingly faced what was coming next, what his body actually endured. From the moment of his arrest to his death, Jesus endured a level of physical trauma that would kill many people before reaching the cross. He was seized and dragged across Jerusalem through the night. He was punched repeatedly in the face. Then came the Roman scourging, a brutal whipping with leather cords embedded with bone and metal designed to tear flesh apart. Victims often died from scourging alone. Then came the crown of thorns. And after all of this, after blood loss, trauma, exhaustion, and a sleepless night, Jesus was forced to carry a massive wooden crossbeam through Jerusalem, estimated between 75 and 125 pounds, and he carried it until his body physically could not continue. That is not weakness, after everything his body had already endured. The fact that he carried it at all is remarkable. The most physically demanding death in the ancient world. Crucifixion was designed to be slow, agonizing, and exhausting. Roman executioners understood exactly what they were doing. When suspended on the cross, the body collapses downward. Breathing becomes difficult. To inhale properly, the victim must push upward against nails driven through the feet. Every single breath becomes an act of pain management. Exhaustion, suffocation, blood loss, shock, all fighting against the body at once. And Jesus endured this for approximately 6 hours, after already being scourged nearly to death beforehand. The physical toll was absolute. His body gave everything, a body beyond physical limits. And then, according to the gospel accounts, something happened that no physiology can explain. 3 days after death, Jesus rose. The writers describe a transformed body, a body that could be touched, could eat, could walk, yet also appear suddenly and pass through locked doors. Whatever one believes spiritually, the gospel writers were making a physical claim. This was not a ghost. This was a body. Changed, but real for believers. This becomes the ultimate physical statement. A body that conquered death itself. So let's bring this all together. A lifetime of heavy labor, years of walking thousands of miles across harsh terrain, a 40-day wilderness fast, the physical authority to clear a crowded marketplace alone, surviving beatings, scourging, and crucifixion. This is one of the most physically demanding lives documented in ancient history. Not because of athletic performance, but because of endurance, resilience, and the ability of the human body to continue through unimaginable suffering. Whether you're a believer, a historian, or simply curious about the ancient world, the physical story of Jesus deserves to be told.